Come to the true Lord, come to His mercy, come to submission, come sing His praises.
Hey, peace be upon you and welcome back to Universal Unity. It's the month of Ramadan, so naturally I'm going to be talking about it. There's actually a lot I want to say about Ramadan, so I might end up making a few videos about it. But God willing, for this video I want to talk specifically about the timings of Ramadan, like how to determine when Ramadan starts and ends, and how to determine when to start fasting and end fasting. Quickly, for those of you who don't know, Ramadan is the month in which those who follow the Quran fast. This means no eating, drinking, or having sexual relations with your spouse from dawn until sunset. Ramadan is determined using the Islamic lunar calendar versus the Gregorian calendar that we're so used to here in the West. So a lunar year is shorter than a solar year by about 10 to 12 days. This means that every year, Ramadan comes 10 to 12 days earlier on the Gregorian calendar. This amazing design allows us to fast during the short days of winter as well as the long days of summer. One of the many purposes of this is to determine who is willing to fast regardless of how long or short the days are. So Ramadan is during the 9th lunar month of the Islamic calendar. But to determine when to fast, you need to know a few things. You need to know what an Islamic day is. An Islamic day is the same as a Hebrew day, which begins at sunset and ends at the following sunset. You need to know when the new moon is going to occur. The start of a new lunar month is when the new moon occurs. So a new moon signals the end of the old lunar month and the beginning of a new lunar month. For those of you who might not know what a new moon is, it's when the moon is in a relative position where we only see the dark side. This means that the sun is only hitting one side of the moon but not the other, and we only see the dark side. Or no moon at all if you're looking up in the sky. Last, you need to know when sunset is, and that is when the sun touches the horizon and starts to go below it. But the instant it hits the horizon, that is the beginning of sunset. Now, theoretically, Ramadan begins as soon as the new moon occurs for the 9th lunar month of the Islamic calendar. However, in practice, fasting doesn't begin until the first sunset after the new moon. So, what this means is, if the new moon occurs before sunset, Ramadan doesn't begin until sunset, and then you fast at dawn. If the new moon occurs after sunset, then Ramadan doesn't begin until the following sunset, which means after the following sunset, you begin your fasting at dawn. And the exact same method is used for determining the end of Ramadan in order to be consistent. So if the new moon for the 10th lunar month after Ramadan occurs before sunset, then Ramadan ends at the following sunset, and you can begin eating, drinking normally the following day. However, if the new moon occurs after sunset, then at dawn you fast until sunset, and then Ramadan ends. This is because technically that day will have belonged to Ramadan. Because remember, in an Islamic day, the day begins at sunset and ends at the following sunset. Among traditional Muslims, Ramadan is determined by physical sighting of the moon. So they wait until they see the first crescents of the new moon. That way they'll know for sure the new moon has come and they can begin fasting. This is done based off of traditions from the Hadith and Sunnah. However, God has blessed us with scientific knowledge to be able to determine exactly when the new moon will begin. The crescent of the new moon appears minutes after the occurrence of a new moon. However, down on Earth, you're not going to be able to physically see it until several hours after. Astronomers are able to calculate when the new moon will occur months or years in advance with amazing precision. This means that we can compute exactly when Ramadan will begin and end with confidence and accuracy. After all, God says in the Quran, He is the one who rendered the sun radiant and the moon a light. and He designed its phases that you may learn to count the years and to calculate. God did not create all this except for a specific purpose. He explains the revelations for people who know. They ask you about the phases of the moon. Say, they provide a timing device for the people and determine the time of Hajj. It is not righteous to beat around the bush. Righteousness is attained by upholding the commandments and by being straightforward. You shall observe God that you may succeed. It's by God's wonderful design that the sun and the moon follow precise orbits, never deviating. And it's for this reason that we can calculate the phases of the moon for the year and many years to come without any error. Same thing with the position of the sun. We can calculate it for any time of the year and many more years to come. And He is the one who created the night and day, and the sun and the moon, each floating in its own orbit. The sun is never to catch up with the moon. The night and the day never deviate. Each of them is floating in its own orbit. So to reiterate, you don't need to physically see the moon in order to determine the beginning of Ramadan. Similarly, we don't need to physically see the sun in order to determine when our contact prayers are. We know that the sun consistently follows an orbit, and we can determine its exact position thanks to God's design and the work of astronomers. And the same thing goes for determining the new moon for Ramadan. A very unfortunate outcome to waiting to see the moon physically is that more times than not, traditional Muslims are late for Ramadan by a day or two. The most detrimental thing about being late for Ramadan, even by a day, is that you miss the night of destiny, or in Arabic it's known as Laylatul al-Qadr. This is the night that is worth 1,000 months. That's about 83 years, an entire lifetime. So one night spent worshipping God, commemorating and glorifying Him is as if you spent an entire lifetime doing this. So if you're off by even a day, you miss out on a lifetime of opportunity. I laugh, but it's actually really unfortunate. So now that we've established how to determine the beginning and end of the month of Ramadan, how does one go about determining the start and end times for fasting? O you who believe, fasting is decreed for you, as it was decreed for those before you, that you may attain salvation. Specific days are designated for fasting. If one is ill or traveling, an equal number of other days may be substituted. Those who can fast, but with great difficulty, may substitute feeding one poor person for each day of breaking the fast. If one volunteers more righteous works, it is better. But fasting is the best for you if you only knew. Ramadan is the month during which the Quran was revealed, providing guidance for the people, clear teachings, and the statute book. Those of you who witness this month shall fast therein. Those who are ill or traveling may substitute the same number of other days. God wishes for you convenience, not hardship, that you may fulfill your obligations, and to glorify God for guiding you, and to express your appreciation. When my servants ask you about me, I am always near. I answer their prayers when they pray to me. The people shall respond to me and believe in me in order to be guided. Permitted for you is sexual intercourse with your wives during the nights of fasting. They are the keepers of your secrets, and you are the keepers of their secrets. God knew that you used to betray your souls, and He has redeemed you and has pardoned you. Henceforth, you may have intercourse with them, seeking what God has permitted for you. You may eat and drink until the white thread of light becomes distinguishable from the dark thread of night at dawn. Then you shall fast until sunset. Sexual intercourse is prohibited if you decide to retreat to the masjid during the last 10 days of Ramadan. These are God's laws. You shall not transgress them. God thus clarifies His revelations for the people that they may attain salvation. From these verses we learn the rules and regulations surrounding fasting during Ramadan. God tells us what our options are if we're ill or if we're traveling, or if we can fast but it's very difficult for us. For example, in the case of pregnancy, or if you're working physical labor and you need to keep hydrated, like a construction job in the middle of summer. God leaves the great difficulty part open for interpretation because it can apply to a variety of situations. In verse 187 of chapter 2 that I just read, God says that fasting begins at dawn and ends at sunset. Determining the time for sunset is not difficult at all, and there's not much or any discrepancy for determining the time for it. Sunset is when the sun touches the horizon. Sunrise is when the sun starts to appear over the horizon. Now from sunrise to the absolute darkness of night is where dawn is. But depending on how you calculate it, there are three different kind of dawns. There's the dawn of civil twilight, where the sun reaches 6 degrees below the horizon. There's the dawn of nautical twilight, where the sun reaches 12 degrees below the horizon. And lastly, there's the astronomical twilight, where the sun reaches 18 degrees below the horizon. So which is it? Which of these three is correct? Which one is the true beginning of dawn? Let's go back and take a look at what God says. You may eat and drink until the white thread of light becomes distinguishable from the dark thread of night at dawn. Then you shall fast until sunset. So God says that dawn is when the white thread of light becomes distinguishable from the dark thread of night. So this is when light first begins entering the sky, and it is no longer completely dark. If you ask an astronomer, they will tell you that it is no longer completely dark, and that there is light in the sky as soon as the sun reaches 18 degrees below the horizon. So according to scientists, 18 degrees below the horizon is the most accurate way to determine when dawn is. 18 degrees is used again when determining the night contact prayers. When the sun is beyond 18 degrees below the horizon, it is now night because the sky is completely dark. Traditional Muslims will use the 6 or 12 degree method, and as a result, many Muslims end up eating or drinking beyond the time that God has permitted for them. Same thing with the night contact prayer. They will say the night contact prayer has begun even though that there's still light in the sky. See, back in the day, we didn't have this scientific knowledge. You had no choice but to look at the position of the sun and at the phases of the moon. We had to physically see them. But with more knowledge comes more responsibility. If you know better, you have to do better. So thanks for watching. That's all I really have to say for now. There is some more that I want to talk about regarding Ramadan, but God willing, I'll make some videos about that in the future. For those of you who are observing Ramadan, may God make it easy for you. Now you know the correct method of determining the start and end of Ramadan, as well as the start and ending of fasting. Thanks again for watching. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below, or you can email us at universalunity19@gmail.com. Feel free to email us with your questions or even suggestions for future topics. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, check out our Facebook page, and also check out our website, which is all in the description down below. Peace be upon you, thanks, and God bless.
La ilahe illallah.